bring in, as promised, Matt Davison now, who joins us from our studios in Lincoln. Matt, you ready for football to start or what?
Transitioning right now, guys, from golf season to football season. So, yeah, I am so ready, although fall golf is pretty good, too. So I'm going to mix in a little bit of both.
Well, we got two games happening involving Big Ten teams today. Indiana plays against FIU, and Minnesota takes on Oregon State. That latter game you can see here on BTN in just a handful of hours. So why don't we focus on those two teams right now? And we start things off with the biggest Minnesota storylines. Tracy Claeys, your new head coach. He's been the interim multiple times, but this is his first season opening game officially. How similar or different will his team look and feel compared to his longtime boss, Jerry Kill's teams? One thing that's very different is the men in charge of the two main units. He's got new offensive and defensive coordinators. Jay Johnson takes over the O, Jay Sawvel the D, both with room to improve for certain. But one thing that is stable and sure is the quarterback, Mitch Leidner, his third year as a starter. His own 16 games he's won in his career, and the last time he played, he was the MVP of the Quick Lane Bowl. He's likely to climb up pretty high on all the Minnesota all-time passing lists. So, Matt, I want to start with you. If you had to say the biggest strength for Minnesota right now entering the season, what would it be?
I think it's going to be their toughness. I think this is going to be a physical football team. You look at Tracy Claeys and what he did in the offseason, bringing in new coaches. I'm guessing that made for great practices. These guys had to go out and prove themselves in practice to new coaches. That made the competition great throughout the spring and the summer. And so I think you're going to see a physical football team that's going to take on the personality of their head coach. Tracy Claeys looks like a football coach. He talks like a football coach. He's a good football coach, and he's going to have these guys ready. I expect a physical game tonight, and I expect this season you're going to see a physical Minnesota football team.
You know, I think it's got to be Mitch Leidner. He's won 16 games as a quarterback in the Big Ten. The guy's mobile. He dropped 35 points against a pretty darn good Hawkeye defense late in the season. He started to really improve, and so I'm interested to see how he fits into Jay Johnson's new system. It's higher tempo than before. It's not as much ball control. Will they let Mitch Leidner out? I've heard rumors he may be a first-round pick. I haven't seen that yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I haven't heard that high, but I have heard that some draft scouts are giving him some serious consideration. That surprised me a little bit.
It's surprising to me considering what I've seen thus far, although he does look the part. He can move, he's big, but you've still got to complete balls on first, second, and third down and be accurate.
Matt, I'm curious what your thoughts are on what was their strength last year, which was the pass defense. They were 11th in the country in least amount of passing yards allowed, but they've lost some of the guys they had last season.
Right, but remember, they get Demarius Travis back there at safety, and I think that's going to be a big boost for them. He had the injury early last season. He's going to be back this season. I expect him to come in, show great leadership back there on the back end, and so I think the younger guys are going to come in under him, and they're going to learn from him. I think he's a hungry football player. Anytime you have to sit out a season, you're always ready for that next year, so I expect Travis to be a big addition for him in the secondary.
Again, Minnesota opens their season against Oregon State in a game that you can see right here on BTN a little bit later on this evening. But the first Big Ten team to play in this 2016 season will be 90 minutes before that game kicks off, and that'll be the Indiana Hoosiers taking on FIU. Here are their main storylines this year. Indiana made it to the Pinstripe Bowl last season, only the program's second postseason berth since 1993. Now they try to make it back-to-back bowls. That's a feat they haven't done in a quarter century since 1990 and 1991. They have a new man in charge of leading the offense. Nate Sudfeld is out. Richard Lego is in. He's a junior who came to the Hoosiers after starting off at UConn, transferring to Oklahoma State, then doing the JUCO route. Just like his predecessor Sudfeld, he's a tall one, listed at 6'6". The one constant problem that Indiana has had in the Kevin Wilson era is the defense. So they brought in Tom Allen to try to change things. He was the DC at South Florida last year. Takes over a team that was worst in the league in points allowed, giving up 37 a contest last year. So, Matt, let's start with you again. Give me the biggest strength that Indiana has entering 2016.
Well, you have to look at the offense, obviously. This team always puts up points, and it's going to start at the quarterback position. And can the big new quarterback come in and complete passes and run this offense, not turn the ball over? That's where it all starts. This Indiana team is going to try to outscore people. It all starts tonight. And really, when you look at trying to make a bowl game, if you're Indiana, they can't let any of these games slip away. And a year ago, they were pushed into the second half, into the fourth quarter by FIU. And tonight they're on the road. I think they have their full attention. Indiana needs to get this one here tonight, get off to a good start this season, get their quarterback off to a good start this season, and then hopefully their defense can come along. I mean, obviously they score some points, but can they stop anybody? That's always the big question mark with them. And so we'll see tonight what kind of a start they get off to in the season. But as you start trying to add up wins and being bowl eligible, this isn't a game that they can kick tonight. They have to be focused right out of the chute.
Yeah, Matt, I couldn't agree more with collecting wins, especially you think about the Big Ten East and how competitive it is. But when I look at Indiana, they lost their two best offensive players, or maybe their three best, in Jason Spriggs, third-team All-American offensive lineman. You got Sudfeld was gone. Jordan Howard's gone. So what is the constant there? Why is Kevin Wilson always dynamic on offense? I think it starts at the offensive line, which doesn't get a lot of credit. And Dan Feeney, we've heard a lot about Dan Feeney from Coach Wilson. He sings his praises often, but nothing works unless the offensive line works. And they run the ball effectively, but they don't give up a ton of sacks. Now, some of that is how quickly they get the ball off. But the offensive line has been the key to the success for Indiana. It will continue to be their strength, and I think it's their number one weapon, especially with questions at the skill positions.
Speaking of that offensive line, you were referencing their running game. Jordan Howard last year was great. Tevin Coleman before him, excellent. I wonder if Divine Redding isn't that next guy. He was hot last year. The last 3 games he played in, he ran in for more than 100 yards.
Let me give you a sign that he's going to be Divine. I don't know what that sign is, but it did rhyme. I just wanted to bust out a little freestyle for you, but I think Divine Redding will top 1,500 yards this year. I really do. I do. Not 2,000, but 1,500.
Well, again, their offense has been very good ever since Kevin Wilson has been there. Can they get a little bit of defensive help? And then maybe they are on their way to 6 wins and a bowl berth once again.